What is the best pension option for your retirement? Oftentimes, retirees are faced with a few different options, everything from a life only to a survivorship option where your spouse receives a percentage of your pension if you pass away first. And a lot of retirees also have the option of taking a lump sum of that given pension rather than the monthly pension. Now, in most cases, this is a six-figure decision that you must make for your retirement. So how do you make the best decision? Well, let's talk about three different things you should be looking at to make this important decision. So the first is the expected return on investment of your pension. So let's take two examples here. We have the monthly pension option or we have a lump sum option. Now, if we take a monthly pension option, depending on how long we live, we will receive those given monthly paychecks each and every month. Now with that lump sum, there is a point where we can earn a large enough return on investment, large enough growth rate on that lump sum to outpace any of those paychecks we're receiving. So what is that break even? Number two, we should be looking at this and almost everything within our plan through a tax lens. So the nominal benefit we are receiving is very important, but the after-tax benefit is even more important. And so what happens if that monthly pension puts you in a position where you are smack dab in the middle of an important retirement tax hurdle? Finally, we'll talk about a few other pension risks that you need to be weighing into this important calculation. Now, we'll be walking through a real-world case study to walk through this exact analysis, showing you how exactly we would calculate and weigh these different benefits as well as risks. Now, with this example, we have Scott, who is 62, and Diane, who is 60. Now, Diane owns the pension, and she has three different options that she can choose from for this given pension. She has a life-only option. This would mean that if she chooses this option, the monthly pension will continue for the rest of her life. If she lives to age 100, it will continue throughout her entire retirement. If she passes away at, let's say, age 70, well, then the pension would stop at that point in time, regardless of how long Scott lives. The second option she has is a 50% survivorship option. So she will receive the amount on the screen for the entirety of her life, and then when she passes away, if she passes away first, Scott will receive half of this benefit on an ongoing basis. And then finally, we see a lump sum amount here of $742,000. Now, an important thing to note here with a lump sum is that is not a one-time distribution that is fully taxable to you in that given year. Rather, when you take a lump sum, that lump sum is rolled into an IRA typically and treated like an IRA from there on out. Now note here, just for specificity, that there is no COLA option, so no inflation adjustments on an ongoing basis, as well as all of these pension options would begin starting today. So these aren't delayed pensions. Now, the good news for many of you watching this video is that we don't need some complex software in order to calculate out this ROI of these various pension options. In fact, there are a ton of great free calculators that can get you pretty close to finding the specifics and the break-evens between these various options. So the one that I'm going to be showing within this video is the Dinkytown Pension versus Lump Sum Payout Calculator. And this is going to allow you to look at a couple different pension options compared to the lump sum option to show what the annual return you would need on that lump sum to overcome the monthly pension options. So remember here that Diane is 60 years old. And after some fairly lengthy longevity discussions with Diane, we found her life expectancy to be age 90, or at least that's what we're planning for. And so we're going to first look at the single life only option. And so we'll have to enter a few things into this calculator: her current age, her life expectancy age, and then we'll also have to enter in the lump sum pension amount versus the monthly pension she would be receiving on an ongoing basis. Now, if we use the life expectancy of age 90, we would find that Diane would have to earn a rate of return of 4.27% on that lump sum for that to overcome taking the monthly pension option. Now, as we start to mess with this life expectancy number, we'll see a vastly different growth rate needed on the back end. So if we extend this number out to age 95, let's say, we'll see that the amount that she would need to earn on this lump sum becomes larger. And so she needs a higher growth rate to outpace the monthly checks that she would be receiving throughout that time period. But if we go the other way with this, let's say age 85, we'll see that this number gets smaller. Now with the 50% survivorship option, what you'll need to do is now add in the spouse's age as well as the spouse's life expectancy. Now remember that Scott is a little bit older, but we also expect males typically to pass away a little bit sooner as well. And so for Scott's metrics, we're going to be using 62 as his current age and his life expectancy of 86. Now keep in mind here with these assumptions, the survivorship option doesn't really make sense at all. The reason being is because we're accepting a lower monthly pension amount for having the optionality for when Diane passes away, Scott still receives a benefit. But if we're looking at Scott passing away first, then Diane will be living longer than Scott. And so they'll never see the benefit of that 50% survivorship option. And so because of this, you'll see the rate of return drop. Now we can start messing with these given metrics. So let's say that we were wrong on Diane's age, and Diane ended up passing away at age 86. And instead, Scott actually lived till age 90. So they basically flipped their life expectancy. Now with these changes, we'll actually see that their growth rate needed actually drops. Now if we think a little bit more about this, this makes sense. If Diane passes away sooner, she'll receive that larger benefit for fewer years, and yes, Scott will receive a 50% option, but keep in mind that is 50% of what Diane was previously receiving. And so we'll see that the return on investment needed falls pretty drastic. Now, interestingly enough, most retirees looking at this situation right here would say this is the perfect example for when Diane should take that 50% option. We're looking at her passing away sooner than Scott would be passing away. Well, in fact, this isn't actually the case. So keep in mind as the baseline that this current growth rate needed would be about 3.3%. Well, if we go back to this calculator and we adjust the single life option down to 86, because after all, Diane is now passing away at 86 in this given example, we see that the growth rate is actually higher than we would see on the 50% option. And so this is why it's so important to start playing around with certain variables, start to stress test certain expectations. And oftentimes what you'll see are some surprising results. But keep in mind here that we don't have to make any decisions yet, because there's another lens that we're going to look at to either increase or lower that return on investment, and that's the tax lens. Now, your tax timeline might look quite different than Scott and Diane's, but they're in their lower 60s, and they're planning on delaying Social Security to their 70s or at least their late 60s. Now, because of this, they're going to open up a window of opportunity that we call the Social Security cleanup zone. By delaying Social Security, we free up income room where we can start to fill in with Roth conversions, with IRA spending, in order to eliminate a lot of tax problems that we would see down the road. Now, this type of situation would certainly lean towards taking the lump sum, because when we take that lump sum, remember, it basically turns into a traditional IRA. We can now overlay things like Roth conversions, tax-efficient withdrawal strategies, in order to hopefully save on taxes in this specific situation. Now, in terms of the monthly pension option, before Social Security, we're not really going to see a large tax cost. It's really post-Social Security that I want to start looking at what is this tax cost. Now, on the screen is what I expect Scott and Diane's tax situation to look like once they're on Social Security. Keep in mind that we're looking at this post-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And so part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the 10% bracket is staying at 10%, but the 12% is reverting back to 15. The 22 is reverting back to 25, 24 back to 28, and so on. And so understand that these taxes are going to look a little bit higher because of that fading out of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, once again, when we're looking at this tax bracket, keep in mind that we have Social Security income in the background, and we also have some small dividend income that we expect from their taxable account on an ongoing basis as well. And so there is some income hidden behind here. What we're going to look at is if we fill in additional monthly pension income, if we take that monthly pension option, the life-only option, what will be the tax consequences? Now, how you read this graph is on the x-axis, this would be the additional income they would show. And then on the y-axis, you'll see what their marginal bracket will be at every level of $1,000 of extra income. Now, in the light blue here, we'll see what the ordinary income brackets would be. This would be 10%, 15%, and then 25%. But then we see some marginal spikes on top of this. Now, why is this? This is because there are two different tax hurdles that are essentially converging on one another. We have the Social Security tax torpedo as well as the capital gain bump zone. Now, the Social Security tax torpedo is created because of the double taxation effect of Social Security. So when you take a dollar worth of income from a pension, an RMD, or other withdrawals, it's going to force some of your Social Security benefit into being taxed. And so a dollar worth of income forces more than a dollar to be taxed, and so we'll see a marginal spike because of that. You can see the Social Security tax torpedo spike in purple here. We then have the capital gain bump zone. Essentially what's happening here is they have a small amount of dividend income. Well, that dividend income is normally taxed at 0% if they're underneath a certain income level. But as they're pushed up and above that income level, dividends stack on last, and so those dividends are pushed up into the 15% bracket. So there's going to be another double taxation effect because of that. Now remember that if Diane took the life-only option, her annual pension would be about $43,400. And so if we look at where that would put her on this tax graph, it would put her right at the start of this tax increase. Luckily, their pension stops right before they hit this marginal spike. Now that being said, however, they hit the marginal spikes before that. And so we'll see that the first approximately $10,000 of that pension would be taxed at 18.5%, and then the rest of the pension before that would be taxed at 27.75%. And so in Scott and Diane's situation, this would cause me to lean towards the lump sum. Because if they took the lump sum and performed things like Roth conversions, essentially eliminated that tax liability from their retirement plan, they could be converting today at rates like 10, 12, 22, even 24%. Now we know that 24% is less than 27.75%, and so we see a tax benefit from lump summing and converting based on the tax hurdles they will see down the road. Of that $43,356 pension, we would expect them to lose about $11,282 to taxes, which is essentially at a 26% effective tax rate on that pension. And so if we can lump sum and convert at a rate less than 26%, there is a benefit to taking the lump sum over the monthly pension option. Now, if we take the previous growth rate we would have needed and we update that for an after-tax growth rate, we see that it drops below 4%. And this is essentially because we can take care of the tax liability with the lump sum at a cheaper cost than we could the monthly pension option. Let's look at a few more things that Scott and Diane should be thinking about within this discussion. The first is inflation. And so with a pension that doesn't adjust to inflation, understand that the amount that that pension can purchase, the purchasing power, is going to fall over time, the higher inflation rate that we see. And so a $43,000 pension sounds like a pretty good pension starting out. But let's look at that in current dollars 20 years from now. At a 2% inflation rate, that $43,000 pension would fall to $23,000 in value in current dollars. At 3%, it would fall to less than $20,000. At 4%, it would fall to just $15,000. And so understand that the higher inflation rate that we see, the more that pension will be devalued on an ongoing basis. Another risk Scott and Diane should be thinking about is the risk of Diane passing away early. And so we know that 4.2% growth rate is only if Diane passes away at age 90. But what happens if she passes away unexpectedly before that? Well, now we see that growth rate decreases in a pretty big way. The final risk that we need to be considering is what is backstopping our pension. Now, some pensions aren't backstopped by anything other than the company. Most pensions are backstopped by the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. This is a national program that if the pension becomes insolvent, the PBGC will essentially take and insure a certain level of your benefit. Now, if your pension isn't backed by the PBGC, this would cause me to discount the growth rate needed to overcome the monthly pension, because at the end of the day, that monthly pension, there is no guarantee that you will ultimately receive that. You're taking more risk. So after weighing these risks, and everybody will weigh these risks a little bit differently, so understand that this is more of an art rather than a science within this third lens that we're going to look at. But we see in Scott and Diane's situation, it lowers their expected growth rate needed on that lump sum. So this after risk return on investment now falls below 3.5%. So should Diane take the life only option or should she take the lump sum? Well, with these updated numbers, I would certainly lean, in my opinion, towards taking the lump sum. I think overcoming a 3.5% growth rate on the lump sum is a pretty conservative rate that historically we could have achieved with a fairly conservative portfolio. And so that would lead me to lump sum in their specific situation. But every situation is going to be different. We have analyzed pensions in the past where they would have needed to receive a 5 or 6% rate of return on the lump sum. At that point, the numbers start getting a little bit more gray. Now, if you're someone that is looking at taking a lump sum option for their retirement, understand that there are additional steps that you need to take to maximize that lump sum. For instance, as we talked about in Scott and Diane's situation, performing Roth conversion strategies during that Social Security cleanup zone. Well, right here is a video where we go through another case study looking at one of these Roth conversion strategies. We'll show how in this couple specific situation, we expect them to save over $290,000 in taxes over their lifetime. Click on this video to learn more, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan.